Welcome to the Strong, Single and Human podcast, a real look at single parenting, how to navigate the ups and downs of life with kids on your own while keeping sane. We cover all manner of subjects from domestic violence, dealing with childhood trauma, through to fussy eaters and how to help your kids become resilient. I'm your host, Claire Martin. Welcome. Rahz Slaughter, once a teen with a 1.62 GPA, faced abandonment and grew up under the shadows of labels and limitations. Raised by a single mother grappling with addiction, Rahz's early life seemed destined for struggle. However, Rahz was no ordinary teen. He embarked on a hero's journey. His turning point came when he transformed his challenges into opportunities. With an unyielding spirit, Rahz defied the odds, achieving academic success and entrepreneurial triumphs. From not reading a book until he was 21, he boasts a library full of thousands, symbolizing his commitment to growth. Rahz's odyssey fuels his mission to inspire 1 million teens through the empowerment mindset system. He knows firsthand the transformative power of embracing a growth mindset. If Rahz, once labelled and overlooked, can soar to such heights, he believes any teen can. Rahz's story isn't just about personal triumph, it's a beacon of hope for every teen navigating a challenging journey. This is the Strong, Single and Human podcast. Hi, Rahz Slaughter. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, welcome. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Excited.
No, it's great to have you on board. So look, I sort of told people a little bit about you, but not very much in a paragraph. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you got to be a parent life coach, a teen life coach? Or maybe you do have to parent, teen, life coach, parents. Oh dear, it's too early in the morning for me. But yes, tell us a bit more about yourself.
Sure, thank you. I guess it starts out, I was always into working with people. That was just, I found at an early age, about 18 years old, that I had a unique gift in connecting with people, building rapport quickly, and having an ability to inspire and motivate them. And so my backstory is I was born with my right leg shorter than the other. I have no quadricep or hamstring on my leg. Wow. And I've had 2 doctors tell me when I was younger that I wouldn't be able to do the things that every other kid would be able to do. Run, play, have fun, just be a kid. And most importantly, that I wouldn't be able to do sports. So early on, I took on a different type of mindset. If you tell me I can't, I must. And then that's just kind of propelled me into my career, whether it would be in fitness and bodybuilding, athletics and wrestling, cycling, right into working with teens and their parents. And yes, I wind up coaching parents because you can inspire and motivate a teen. But what happens when they go home and they have all of these new thoughts and ideas and beliefs, and their parents are still working with an older operating system? It becomes very friction oriented. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, cool. And you were brought up by a single mom as well, weren't you?
I was brought up by a single mom, but raised by a single grandmother.
Oh my gosh, yes. So you know what we're going through anyway, us single parents. So it's all good.
Absolutely.
Well, sort of, but from the other side of the equation as such. Wow. So, okay, there's many things we can do in life, right? There's many jobs and things like that we can do in life. And you sound like you've had an adventurous life, right? And done lots of things. But why? What directed you to teenagers? Because let's face it, they're grumpy, they're smelly, they're they've got all these hormonal changes going on. Sorry, I'm not painting anyone with, that proverbial brush, but, and they're not, they've all got their unique people, but, but like teenagers, man, they hate us adults.
Mm. Well, I think what inspired me is that, this entire world got kind of twisted upside down with the pandemic back in 2019, 2020. and I closed my business. And my business was originally, I owned a personal training studios, and I had a couple in New York and a couple in
Oh,
Florida.
wow.
And I shut them down in about 6 weeks, laying off my entire team and hitting a little bit of a wall, and had to figure out, what do I want to do with the rest of my life, this next chapter. Now, I was already coaching parents. I was already helping. I had two boys at home. They were my stepchildren. My wife was a single mom 10 years ago. And I asked myself, who would I want to dedicate the rest of my life to? And the only thing that could come up was, I remembered myself at 12 and 13 being a lonely little boy who had no father, who had no male role model, who had no one to look forward and say, hey, what does success look like? How do I accomplish something? How do I become a man? And so it was teens that I saw that were struggling. And I had the foresight to see that there were a bunch of kids who were going through this pandemic locked in a room, not sure what was going on with their world outside. Everyone had an opinion and telling us what to do, what not to do. Believe this person, believe that person. And I said, Rahz, when you were that age, what would you have done? I had no clue. And I said, I really want to dedicate time to really just devoting myself, how to inspire, motivate, and teach teens how they can master the 6 inches between their ears so that they can change their life. And it just came down to mindset. It was something that I was passionate about. And I also knew that it would keep me up late, get me up early, and I could really move forward with this chapter of my life.
And it's right what you say, right? At the end of the day, we are in control of our destinies as such. And it is it is our internal conversations with ourselves, as well as our external conversations with other people, that actually influence our lives. And we spend most of our awake life, sometimes our asleep life, talking to ourselves and having internal conversations like, wow, look at her over there. She's got an awesome skirt. Or, wow, didn't really deal with that meeting very well. Or, oh my God, I killed it. And all these conversations are going on in our heads. Do you know what I mean? And it's just.
Absolutely.
And I think as parents, we have these conversations, but we don't actually, it doesn't register with us that our kids are having these conversations too, right? As well as other people that we interact with, right? But I suppose when you're interacting with another adult, you sort of understand it. Maybe you're not understanding that there's conversations going on in their heads, right? But yeah, it's so essential to educate our teens as to what's happening in their head and how they can deal with it, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think that what you were saying there is like the conversations, if we were slow down a little bit, we're so preoccupied in what I see with us. And, we all are looking at our phones and in our own world, that we don't listen to those thoughts. I call it that internal self-talk that really drives everything about us. Who am I? What are my strengths? What are my limitations? And, when I can work with a parent, I help them understand their unique personality. And that's going to allow them to improve their communication with their kids, because a lot of parents, what I've found, the struggle is communication. How to talk to your kid, how to get them to do the things you want to do. And it doesn't matter if you're in a traditional mom and dad family or a single. And if you're in a single family, it still comes down to communication, right? How we're talking to ourselves and what we're saying to our children.
And I think nowadays it's all too easy with computer games and social media and mobile phones. It's all too easy. If it gets hard, you just go, oh, well, okay, I give up. And they go on their phones and you go on your phones, and the communication just isn't there. Complete breakdown.
Facts. Yes, absolutely.
So, okay. So how do we do this connection business? How do we, well, one, I suppose there's two sides of the coin, right? How do we help our teens to govern their internal voices? And then how do we maintain, I suppose, because when they're babies and when they're kids and toddlers and, 8-year-olds or whatever, they still have that dependency on you. They still love the fact that, you're going and getting them, doing things for them, et cetera, right? Which drives me insane sometimes. But however, I still like doing it.
But then when they start to become more independent, they don't need you to do so much because they can pour the milk out of the milk bottle or whatever for their breakfast. So two sides of the coin, right? Let's attack the first side, right? Which is how do we educate our teenagers about their internal voices and get them to understand what they should be listening to and what they shouldn't be listening to, or what they should be reframing in their minds?
Great question. It starts with their belief systems and sitting down and actually having a conversation. What do you believe? Why do you believe that? What are some beliefs? How did you get that belief? And so often, I can recall a lot of kids come to me and say, especially little girls when I was training with them, is, oh, I'm not good at that. That's for girls. That's for boys. And then I would ask them, who says? Why is that? And when you get them to think about that and not go, oh, just give you a esoteric answer like, oh, because my mom said or my dad, I don't know why. I don't know why I can't do that. Well, you can if you want to. And once you get them to believe and have a new and reframe, like you said, reframe that negative, disempowering belief into an empowering, inspiring one, then you have to get them to do something. See, because if you just get them to believe something, oh, I can do this. I think I can. I think I can. What happens is they take no action. Once they get a little bit of action and get a result, now they see that, oh, I can do this. I can become more. I can have more. And that is the first way that you really want to start to shift those disempowering beliefs into empowering ones. And then watch your kid blossom and find ways to praise those actions as opposed to just the things like, oh, great grades or you did this. Really praise their vulnerability. Praise when they're having beliefs conversations. Praise those things that are not really clear to everyone else, but it's as a parent, it becomes very clear to you because you're consciously looking at it.
And I suppose as a parent, right, you've got to live by what you're telling your child, right? So at the end of the day, like I am very much, so I am very much your thought process, right? I believe in your thought process. In fact, if anyone said to me, oh, you can't do that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm definitely doing that now, whether I wanted to do it or not, I'm definitely doing it, right? Um, but mine was very much, and I suppose because I'm a 70s child, right? So I was brought up in the 70s and it was very much role models. So end of the 60s, 70s was very much women did X, men did Y, right? And even the 80s was a bit of a horrendous nightmare regarding, the sexes and the roles. I'm so glad that we're sort of getting a bit away from all of that role modeling situation with the sexes. But like my view was like, okay, I'm a girl. I can do anything that a boy can do. So what, right? So those sort of things. So I'm thinking we need to live by what we're telling our kids, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that is the first step. I mean, because your kids are going to do what you do, not what you say, right? We want them, oh, I want you to be a good student. I want you to be a role model. I want you to be a good citizen. But you're in the car every time someone cuts you off, you're yelling and saying all these foul language. And then what do you think they're going to do? Or when you're speaking to your significant other or your friends and you're unconscious about the words you're choosing to use, your children will use those same words when they leave the home. So, as you were saying, we have to walk our talk. That is such an essential part of parenting. And I know that my grandmother, who raised me, she really believed in core values. See, I didn't have a father. She was a strong Southern grandmother. Only had a second grade education, but there were some things that I learned from her: loyalty, be honored to your word. Still to this day, my wife hates it sometimes because it's like, I don't lie. I say exactly what is on my mind. If you ask me, hey, Rahz, how do I look? If you look bad, I'm going to tell you the way I see it that moment. And that's just the way my grandma taught me. And I think that our boys have picked up on that as well. They know how we embrace being honest.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And yes, and I think that's important, especially in today, with all of the fake stuff out there. You've got to be real to who you are, haven't you? That's the thing. That's the thing. So, okay. So, educating these kids is great, but
Mm-hmm.
how do we educate them, right? Because being a mum of a boy, even now, he's not even 9 yet, right? I can look at him and I'll be asking him to do something. And it's highly likely it's the way I'm framing it, right? But he just looks at me and goes, Mum, you're nagging, or Mum, you're moaning, or Mum, chill out, right? Or whatever. So how do we communicate with these teenagers? How do we help them without seeming as though we're prying, involving ourselves in their lives and like too much nagging or all of those things?
It's a fantastic question. I'm not sure the audience is going to love the answer here, but I truly believe that you're not a parent. You're a parent. You're not a friend. So you know better for your children.
Completely.
So I'm a big proponent of, you know what? Hey, I said this is what we got to do. These are my expectations. These are my consequences. And I'm not your friend. So you don't speak to me that way. You don't call me bro. You don't call me hey man. And these are just things that, I learned as an adult, and I didn't even realize I had that programming, right? These are beliefs that my grandma instilled in me. When someone comes in the house, you stand up, you say, hello, how are you doing? And it goes back, Claire, to what we were talking about, leading by example. I do the things that I ask my boys to do. So that's how you start, by teaching them. And then you sit down and you have a real family conversation. When you see something that's not working, you don't brush it under the table. You don't say, I'm too tired. You don't say, I can't get at it. You say, hey, you know what? And for my son, his name's Nicky. I say, hey, Nicky, let's go for a walk. Let's walk the dog. We need to have a conversation. It's Mother's Day. And on Mother's Day, your mom deserves to have a really nice gift, a thoughtful gift, not just a last minute pair of flowers or a card.
Yeah.
I had to have that conversation, and now we get thoughtful gifts. But it comes up to the parenting and your style. There is no right way. We all have to develop our own parenting style and what works for our family. See, my way doesn't always work for everybody's family, but there are things that do work that transcend to other families. And that's important. That's the first way I see it.
Okay, so give us some examples. So if people are listening to this, and you're right, everyone is different, right? So what are some of the ways that we can, influence what's going on in these kids' lives?
Absolutely. So one of the ways I talk about a lot is like kids struggle with chores, right? Especially teens. And you were like, oh, you ask your son to put the game down. The first thing you do is you sit down and have family meetings. And these family meetings are designed so that you run it like a business. Everybody knows what their role is and what you expect of them. And then I have a consequence menu. And my sons are older and we still have it. And here's the thing, because I don't want to just punish. I don't believe in, I'm taking this, I'm stealing that, you're not getting this. No, that doesn't work. What works is say, hey, you know what? You knew that the garbage needed to come in every Tuesday and Thursday, and it's not in. Okay, so you need this from us. This week, I'm not taking that, but you're going to have to earn this back. And these are the things you're going to do. And I really instill doing things that are going to be appropriate. You know what? Mrs. Jones needs help across the street. I want you to walk across the street and let her know for the next 2 weeks, you'll bring her garbage in for her. Because this is going to remind him, hey, I forgot mine, but now he's doing something good as well. And this is how you reinforce these positive behaviors that you want to see. And I teach them also, one of the things, after you sit down with that meeting, you ask them, how do they see things working out? How can they improve? How can I improve as a parent so that I make sure that we don't have these conflicts? It doesn't always have to be a one-way street. I really believe in empowering our children to have a voice, and a voice that is respectful, built on those core values. But at the same time, they can say, you know what, Rahz, I'm just not feeling that right now. I don't want to go to that dinner with you guys. Tell me why. Well, because I have something to do that I really want to do. You know what? I understand that. That works. Or, hey, we're going to your grandmother's house tonight. This is a non-negotiable. She needs to see you. And it's having the authority, but also having the flexibility to be kind of compromising in those moments. And it really works.
And I have to agree with you, right? It's a two-way conversation because, so at what age do you start to do this, right? Because, I mean, I probably could start this with my son. He's going to be 9 soon. So, but I'm not sure. A couple of years ago, I don't know. Maybe we could have done. What age?
It's really, the age does not matter. It's how because these are principles. Principles don't change, right? What changes is the weather, people's attitudes, but principles stay the same. Is always going to be gravity. And so what we need to do is when you're looking at your son, you're not going to speak to him in a way that you would speak to a 20-year-old, but you want to speak to him in a way that he's going to understand it. And that's going to make you improve your communication. You don't know something that you can't bring down to someone else's level. And that is so essential. And I mean, I tell parents all the time, we're looking at, 6th and 7th graders talking about bullying, talking about disrespecting girls. You really have to be able to have a conversation with them and let them know why that's not right. And it's never about the age, it's about the message.
Yeah. And it seems as though conversations that I had when I was a bit older are getting younger and younger, right? They're getting exposed because of social media and the internet and the conversations that they have with their mates at school, right? So it's not so much that you as a family may allow your child onto the internet, social media, etc., but it's the fact that they go into schools and they have conversations with people at school, right, about various different things. And so no matter how much you're protecting it at home, right, they're still getting exposed to it elsewhere. And so that's a challenge as well. How do you
Absolutely.
how do you deal with that though? How do you deal with the influence of social media? And because it's massive, it is like, we didn't have social media when I was younger. So for me as a parent now, I go, I don't know. Everything seems bad at the moment, right? Everything. And because we went out on our bikes, and it's great that my son does. He goes out on his bikes and goes and visits his mates, right? But we used to go out on our bikes. We didn't stay in on a computer. They'd only just been invented when I was a kid, right? So, so how do we do this? How do we help them?
The biggest thing is you can't be afraid to have the difficult conversation. And, I remember when my son was going into the 7th grade and they had phones, and I had to sit down and have a conversation. Say, if someone sends you a inappropriate picture, you cannot pass it along. And here's why, because you are going to get a scarlet letter saying that you are distributing porn. And you can get in a lot of trouble. Now, having that conversation with a 7th grader is weird because you got to talk about sex. You got to talk about body parts. But here's the thing. If we as parents aren't doing it, like you said, someone's going to teach them. I'd rather be the teacher so I know they're learning correctly.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then what do you do around self-image? Because another alarming thing, right? Another alarming thing is like, in the 80s, which is when I was a teenager, there was a lot of like eating disorders and things like that around, right? Because it was the era of the waif, which was like, they looked like drug addicts, basically. So skinny, it was untrue. I am definitely not skinny, right? I'm a very curvy shape. So there was no way I was getting waif-like anyway. But there was just a lot of pressure. And we didn't have social media, right? We just had magazines, newspapers, and TV. So, and it seems as though it's sort of gone from females having this eating disorder and this, bad view about their bodies to it transpiring to boys as well. Oh, I need to have bigger arms. It just worries me. How do we deal with that?
Yeah, you have to, again, I believe a lot of the stuff that when I'm on a podcast or writing a blog, I always talk about being a proactive parent. What that means is you got to preempt what you see coming around the corner for your children. Don't wait and then try to shoot from the hip and try to figure it out and solve it when you're already in the thick of it. That's too late, and like you were saying, it's something like almost 60% of boys by the time they're in the 7th grade are thinking about what type of supplement they should be taking or changing their bodies. And this is because we're in that era, like you said, body image. And it doesn't matter. Girls want one body, boys want another one. But when you're a parent, you want to start to look and say, okay, look for these signs. When can you start to, and that's where you want to get them some help, a coach, or get them active, or just make sure that you're not using language that's self-deprecating to yourself about your own body. See, remember, they're going to learn from us. So if we're always talking about how skinny I need to be and I need to lose weight and I'm dieting and I'm drinking this shake for this, they're thinking that they're not good enough. Now, I started this started this off with telling, my story about, my grandmother and all. I love that you said the language I'm curvy. That's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that.
I can't change it.
But what if you said, oh, I'm like a word that's not positive, your child, your son would pick that up, right? So we need to start to make sure that and you don't want to be the parent who is, oh, little Johnny, you're perfect just the way you are, because he doesn't believe you. Right? You got to keep it real with them.
Exactly. And I predominantly 95% of my diet is vegan, whole food, whatever, right? I tend to stay off dairy and meat. I do eat meat, but I tend to stay off it majority of the time for health reasons. My diabetes runs in my family. We've got high we've got high bad cholesterol, which doesn't seem to be hereditary, but seems to be when females in my family get over the age of 50, we all start to get it. So anyway, I think we need to move more, but that's a different story. But it's around not eating for weight, so to be skinny or to be musclier or whatever. It's about eating healthy. And so that's the wording I use, is about eating for my health, and not actually going, oh, I need a skinny, and also eating proper food that you can recognize, right? Not the stuff that's sitting in a tin somewhere that you're just eating 2 or 3 times a day. So that it's just about educating them about food and where things come from and just stuff like that. I do worry about the internet a lot, because there's some fandangled stuff that he's come and spoken to me about that I've gone, oh my God, where did you get that from? Like, what's going on there? It's like, oh, a kid online watched this thing and this guy isn't really dead. And I'm like, why are we even talking about dead guys, right? But hey ho, these subjects seem to fascinate kids, I suppose. But yeah, it's insane. But so my other big concern, right, is when do you let your kids have social media, right? Because there's a new wave thing in Australia where I am, where a lot of parents are going, I'm going to give them a phone when they go to high school, which is like grade 7, I think. Yeah, grade 7, right? We're going to give them a phone when they go to high school, but we're not going to allow social media on their phones when they're at high school. So no Insta, no Facey, none of those ones. Because it's detrimental, because they're at that influential stage of their lives. So when they leave school, then if they want to get it, then that's fine. So I don't know, what is that happening in the States? What's your thoughts on that?
It's a big topic. I would say that it's something that I've had a conversation with a lot of my clients in our private groups. And I have to say, it's a tough one. It's a really tough. I leave it up to the parents. Looking back, hindsight is all I can do. And my wife and I are actually looking to adopt soon. And so It's the conversation that we're having as well. Should we? Now, here's the scary thing. I don't want my son or daughter or any to be like, oh, but 99% of the kids have a phone at school. Now you're the one that now everyone's going to use that as the device to pick on you. That is the making you the target. So it's a tough conversation for any parent. You have to look. There's a lot of cool apps now. We have Bark and 360 and a bunch of other apps that allow you to monitor. I think we have to be really just vigilant parents, right? Conscious parents looking at the phones, allowing them, setting a time, putting some parameters, not trying to take it away so bad, because when you take in, Claire, we remember you told us not to ride our bikes too far. We couldn't wait to get over those tracks, right? Like that's what you tell us not to do something as a kid. That's what we want to do. We're fighting for that freedom, that independence. So I believe in instilling the right core values and allowing them to make some mistakes so that I can have teaching opportunities, then to reinforce the positive beliefs and habits that I want them to have.
Do you think monitoring is spying on them, though? Do you think it's an invasion of their privacy, right? I know we're going down a whole different avenue now.
No, this is a beautiful conversation.
But there's a big debate around no social media apps. I mean, I think it's a good idea that when they're at school anyway, that they don't have phones with them anyway, right? Like they put them in a locker or they put them in a lockbox or whatever it is, and they don't have phones at all at school. However, the challenge there is, and we've had it happen here in Australia, is kids meet up at 7 a.m. in the morning because their parents are going off to work. There's no clubs or places that they can go before school. They've been meeting up and they've been having fight clubs and videoing it and then sending it around their friends, right? So there's various different things like that that are going on and putting it around Snapchat and social media and stuff like that. So yeah, it is an interesting debate. And I understand what you're saying about monitoring, but is that not spying on them?
So
is that like,
I have a belief on that.
Would you like to be monitored?
Well, hey, here's the thing. I'm going to give you the option. If you want the phone, you have to take the parameters. Here's the deal. Claire, we are not, you and I both own a car. We drive. So here's the thing. If I want to have a beer and I want to get behind the wheel, I know I'm going to put myself in a situation. There's a rule, there's a law saying you can't do that. And I teach, I think we just have to instill, it's a conversation. And you also have to look at the maturity of your child. Every boy, every girl is developing at a different rate. Their brains is under a different construction factor. So when we look at these things, we can't make everything black and white. No phones for every kid. Some kids are great with it. Some kids don't have an issue. I do think that I would love the educational systems to say that there should not have any phones in school, and then make the teachers have to teach and not just send everything to their phones, because when you put these phones in their hands, they're distracted. This is not just you or I having this conversation. This is science. They have a lower attention rate today. They can't focus. Children are struggling putting full sentences together because they're so used to just sending little texts, emojis and stuff. So these are the things that you and I see differently. We're having a conversation. We've met before, of course, but it's easy for us to communicate. Kids are struggling with that today. And I believe it's because of the addiction of everything is bite-sized, micro content, quick, they can change, and they're not able to process and think. So that's the big issue that we really need to focus on.
Yes, I know. And the thing is, what we don't realize is the computers that we have sitting on our desks, right? We're giving to our children, because that is how powerful these mobile phones are now today. Yes. I can be, and I have been, not in the office, but on my mobile phone working. I can take work calls on my phone. I get emails. I can Google and surf around and find information out. I can go on Chat GPT. God love AI at the moment, but I can go and on the AI tools we've got out there and generate and create all different things from my phone. It is a computer. We're putting a computer in their hands, right? We're giving a computer to somebody who I don't know, maybe they know more about it than I do, right? But, that doesn't have the maturity to deal with some of the information that's on there. So, yeah, I don't know, it's scary. It's scary. And there's lots of, do you find that in some of the detail, what are the key things that some of the teenagers are coming to you and talking to you about? What are they concerned about? Because I know I've talked a lot about what we're concerned about, but I'm going, what do they say they need help with?
The biggest thing, and this is one that we can, and you're in a great position, and I believe my wife and I will be there too, because we're having these conversations, right? We have communities that we can go to and learn from. But one of the biggest things is that their parents are helicoptering them. They're not giving them the ability to grow, to adapt, to evolve into the humans that they need to be, because either the phones, some parents are really know where their kids are at every second of the day. And that's creating anxiety for the parent and then forcing a weird issue on the teens, right? We got to go out and say, hey, I had a curfew. It was 6:00 in the weekdays, 7:30 on the weekends. Don't be late, right? But as long as I got home on time, there was no issues. Right. And I think that's one of the challenges that, teens come to me and say, hey, Rahz, how do I tell my mom or dad about this without them flipping out on me? And that's where I work with teens and the parent and say, hey, this is a modern teenager. They know, like we were saying, they have a lot of access and information. So we're not pulling the wool over their eyes. So when you're talking to them, speak to them as if they were a little bit more mature. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Give them an opportunity to express themselves. I don't care what you wear in your hair. I don't care what your clothes look like, as long as you're neat. I'm not going to try to control every aspect of their lives, because that's when kids start to get into things. And I've worked with parents for years. And so one of my things that I tell parents all the time is, hey, here's what you want to do when your kid gets to the age where they can go out on their own, they can get around alcohol. I said to my son, hey, you have this rule. Call me no matter what you need. And you could say, Dad, I need to talk about this later. That means I'm in trouble, but I need you to come get me. And I don't want to talk about it tonight. And that allows him to have the belief in me to go, hey, I have it out. I don't have to make a bad decision and get into the Johnny's truck because he's been drinking and it's late and I'm going to miss my curfew. So it's having those preemptive conversations. And then kids really respect that. And I also have a way of, I tell teens, hey, when you mess up, own up. Take 100% responsibility. When you instill that they're going to take responsibility, doesn't mean they're going to always get punished. Sometimes I'm going to go, hey, you know what? I was your age. I was a boy. My prefrontal cortex had not developed. I jumped off roofs into pools and thought I could fly. Like that's what we do as teen boys,
Don't tell me that.
Oh yeah, he's good. When you come in, he's like, "Oh, my elbow hurts." It's because he tried to be like some Superman, But if we have these conversations as parents, and if I can share anything to the listeners, let's open our minds as parents so that we can start to learn as well. We don't know what we don't know. So you got to get around other parents. You got to listen to podcasts like this. You have to get informed. Otherwise, you're going to have a blind spot in your parenting.
Yes, I agree. And we have all been teenagers before, right? That's the problem. Like we've seen it, got the T-shirt, know the perils out there, been there, wondered how the hell we survived that night or whatever. And we just don't want our kids to. But the thing is, the kids have to go through that too, and come back to us in 110% pieces. We want them whole, right? And we don't want them having to go up the hospital to pick them up because they've bashed their elbow jumping off a roof into a pool, right? But I think you're right, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's about how we react as well, right? Because if we throw our dollies out the pram and set rockets off because they've done something that we don't approve of or is stupid and could have killed them, right? I understand why we're doing it, right? But that's not going to help them though, is it?
Absolutely not. We can't be reactive. We have to, and one of the simple phrases, you got to stay calm, cool, and collected when you're parenting. And you don't want to show your child that you don't have a mechanism of control, internal control. So when they come home and they're a little bit late or if you're screaming, you're teaching them how to react, not respond.
Yeah. Yes. That's very good. That's very good. Very good analogy there. So how do we keep them safe though? Or do we not keep them safe?
You can't bubble wrap them. It's just the way it is.
What about?
Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna ask though. What about drugs and alcohol, right, and things like that, right? Because they're rife wherever you live. I don't care what anyone says, right? So what do we do? It covers off rich, poor, whatever. Drugs are there, right? So what do we do? Do we educate our children?
Absolutely, 100%. Open the door to the conversation. And don't do it in times where it's reactive. Don't do it in times where you see a commercial. Oh, that's drugs. That's your brain on drugs. Because you remember the commercial with eggs in a frying pan. You don't want to do it that way. You want to go, okay, let me go do your own due diligence. For me, I wanted to know, okay, what other drugs out? Because when I was out there, I don't think they were as bad. We didn't have fentanyl. We didn't have all these drugs that take it one time and you could get hooked and die. So I had to educate myself. And then I said, hey, you know what? Let's have these conversations. Do you know anybody? Has anyone offered these things to you? What would you do if this happened? And then I role play. You role play so that your kids are in a position of power, not disempowered. And, whether it comes to someone says, oh, put this in your book bag. No, my son understands that when he started driving, I said, hey, you have to know when someone gets into your car, you are responsible for everything in that car.
Wow, that's true.
Right? See, these are the preemptive
You're
conversations.
right.
Someone throws something in your car and gets out and you drive home, get pulled over. Hey, you can't say, oh, that was my friend. The cop's not going to listen to that.
Yeah, that isn't mine. No, exactly.
Right?
Ignorance does not count in the eyes of the law or whatever it is. But you're right.
Yep. So
Wow.
that's that. Those are the conversations, Claire, that we have to start having.
That's right. We do. And we have to get real with these kids as well. Yeah, it's just insane. I think we need wine to cope with our anxiety and stress or whatever. See, there we go. That's my no, we need to eat healthy and do fit things and not go on the wine and drugs when our kids are out clubbing and doing whatever they're doing. No, shame. And meditate lots. We're going to have to meditate a lot. What do you do? Because how old are your boys?
So the boys now are 20 and 24.
So, oh my God. So, how do you deal with them being older and out? And because it's like one of my biggest anxieties is I'm a mum, right? And I'm a mum of a boy. And I'm sure parents of girls just as anxious as I am, right? You get to your control. You're losing your control. You're losing your influence on them. So do you just not think about them being out? No, that's impossible, right? My mum says at my age, right? God love my mum, but my mum says even at my age, she worries about me and I'm in a different blooming country. So how do you deal with all of losing control? Losing control is probably the wrong word, but losing your influence over your children. How do you deal with it?
So that's a conversation that I've had with my wife many times. I think that's one of where a lot of when we have that patriarchal thinking of like male, female, right? I think men, we kind of get excited about, hey, this is where, because we want to see this happen. This is my young man. This is my young girl. But I will tell you that you can't, like my son still comes home. He's in college, my youngest, and he's home now, and he's going to help with the dog. But the way you asked, one of the questions is, what do you do as a parent? What you said, you meditate. You don't beat yourself up. You give yourself self-care. As a parent, you have to have those things in place so that you have balance. And then you're going to feel that at first initial, like when Nikki went away to college and Richie was in the Coast Guard, we felt that, oh my God. But it's what you do as a parent. It's you raise the bird so that you can get them out of the nest and they can fly. And if we try to keep them in the nest,
and then you can go get
exactly. And I really believe that is part of parenting, because if you don't do that, then your kids won't know how to do it when they're out there. See, you're just perpetuating a cycle. And if you want to break any of the cycles, like we're here, and a lot of the parents and listeners are probably single moms, right? You got to make time for yourself. You got to go out there if that's what you want and find that significant other, that person that will bring closure or happiness or love or whatever you need back into your life. And when you do that, your kids are going to go, wow, that's what I have to do. My mom is strong. See, when I think about my grandmother, I look at it and I say, wow, this woman was so wise. She was so powerful, so inspiring. I got that because I watched the way she navigated her life. And that is the key to parenting. And I believe this is basically, what are we doing? And if we want our kids to live a great life, we have to live a great life.
I completely agree. And I can't wait for my extra freedom, which sounds really bad. And I love my child to death. But it's about, I'm planning. I've got loads of stuff I want to do when he's at college and uni and stuff like that. So I agree with you. It's about filling your time, not sitting at home pining for the kids. No, definitely. So look, where can people get in touch with you regarding finding out more information? And you've got a podcast, you've got a couple of books.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to get in touch or just kind of connect, I love chatting. Social media, like we're saying, it's something that we're all on. It's Rahz Slaughter on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And if you would like to check out any of the blog or anything on my website, it's theunstoppablетeenager.com. And it's not just for teens, it's for parents to empower teens so that they can live their best life as well.
No, that's awesome. And it's a great website. I've been on there and I've had a look around, and there's some really valuable information on there. So yeah, go and check it out. It's awesome. And look, one last question for you, and I'm going to be really interested to see how you answer this. I'm going to throw a doozy at you because I don't believe you're aware that I was going to ask this question. What has been a piece of advice that you've been given that you still use today?
Oof. There's been a lot, but a piece of information that I still use today.
Yeah.
I have to say it goes back to Jim Rohn. And I got to meet Jim Rohn. And for those who might know who he is, he was a business philosopher here in the United States for many years. He was actually Tony Robbins' mentor.
That's right.
And I met him, and he said that, you're not a tree. So if you don't like the way things are going, you don't like your life, change. And I truly believe, and I've kept that. Anything in my life that I don't like, I can change. If I don't like the attitude, I don't like the people I'm around, I don't like my job, I don't like my relationships, I don't like my friends, I can change. That stuck with me so much because so often I meet parents, especially some of the single parents, who are stuck in a story.
Yes.
And they can change the story, but they're addicted to the drama that their life has brought to them, and they stay stuck. I had a lot of that drama, right? My mom was addicted to crack cocaine. My dad left me. I could be that kid, or I could decide not to be. So that's what I hope I share with the listeners today, is that we all have the opportunity to change and become anything we want, but we have to first take some new action.
And I completely agree with you that you can't change everyone around you. You can't change other people, right? The only person and situation you can have an influence on is your own, right? So, and I try and instill that in my son as well, right? It's like, don't worry about X, Y, and Z, right? Worry about what you can change, right? Worry about what you can deal with. Because if you're worried about stuff that you have no influence over and cannot change, you're wasting time. Start worrying about what you can change. No, really good advice. Really good advice. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast and giving us some information about how we can deal with our fantastic, awesome, lovely smelling teens. Sorry, it's a shame. It's the hormones. But that's okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on your platform and your podcast. I really enjoyed it. And I think that you're going to do great because you're instilling the right values and beliefs into your son. And you're going to enjoy these years because they go by really fast.
They do. They do. No, thank you. Thank you. Look, you have a fantastic evening.
You as well. Have a great morning. I'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you would like to hear more, please hit subscribe wherever you like to hear podcasts. If you would like to support us further, share this episode with your friends and family. And finally, drop us a review on iTunes, as I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, and ideas. It all helps me to understand and produce awesome content you want to hear just like this. If you want to check out our past episodes, write to us, appear on the podcast, or for links, resources, and show notes, go to our website, www.strongsingleandhuman.com. We are also on all the usual social media platforms, Insta, Facey, and Twitter. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Be kind to yourself, and remember, no one is perfect. We're all just putting one foot in front of the other and doing our best. I'm Claire Martin, and you've been listening to the Strong, Single and Human podcast.